Hey everyone, welcome to the Get Your Life Together Girl Mini Mindset Reset. I'm your host, Danielle. As a cognitive behavioral therapist, a life coach to women, and author, one thing has become abundantly clear. So much of what gets in our way in our daily lives is not only how we think, but what we think, our mindset. Because of that, every other week, I'm taking your requests and questions and handing over quick, easy to use, practical strategies and life tools to help you shift your thinking, create calm, help you understand and express your emotions, harness your inner power, and learn how to navigate your personal story in 15 minutes or less. After all, how else can you get your life together? So let's shift your perspective with the tools and conversations that help you in the throes of change. The Get Your Life Together Girl podcast mini mindset reset starts right now. Have you ever heard the saying, you've got to fall in love with yourself first? Many women reject this idea, but the truth is, the longest relationship you will have during your time on this earth is the relationship you have with yourself. Nurturing yourself is highly important, and if you want to get your life together, be abundant, and truly be in alignment, you have to put yourself first. Margaret from Austin, Texas wrote in and said, Danielle, in the year that I've been following your work, I have been working towards owning my life and deeply caring about myself. I've made my mental health, emotional well-being, sleep, nutrition, physical activity, and relationships a priority. However, I'm still struggling to put myself first in all areas of my life. I know you've said multiple times that we must hold space for ourselves and our needs, but honestly, I still find myself giving more than I should because I want to be a good person. How can we hold space for ourselves without feeling selfish or guilty? And are there ways that I can check in with myself to know if I'm putting myself first? Fantastic question, Margaret. Thank you so much. You know, many of us do really need a measuring system to know if we're putting ourselves in first position. And that's exactly what we're going to work through and reset today. Now, doing this work comes in a few simple and easy ways, as simple as asking ourselves a few questions. And there's a few pieces I want to get to first. As for holding space for ourselves, I absolutely love that this is a focus, and I hope it's a focus for you too. Yet for those that do not know what this means, holding space for yourselves means to be really present with yourself without judgment. It means you are willing to listen to your own needs, act from a grounded place of self-love, trust, and respect, and ultimately practice empathy and compassion, but inward, right? It's an essential act of putting yourself first. And before we dive into the rest of the question, I really want to touch on, quote, being a good person. First, understand that being a good person has many definitions for each of us. One person may think that being a good person means that you do the right thing at all cost, even the cost of yourself. You know, doing the things that you dislike or disrupt your life because you want to be helpful to others. Others may see being a good person by, not speaking up for themselves, not rocking the boat, or staying small to make others comfortable with their own unwillingness to take control of their lives. Others believe that it's living and trying to do your best every day, right? There are so many definitions, but the problem with, quote, being a good person means that we are often doing things that are unkind to ourselves, and we do it without question or even realizing the long-term impact. And so we're going to move through that piece today too. The deal is this: when we put ourselves first in a genuine way, we realize that being a good person starts with how we treat ourselves. When we treat ourselves well, we then have the ability to engage with others in a grounded and heartfelt way. We also realize that no one else is going to save us or do the work for us. With this understanding, we can realize that we cannot do the work for others as well. It's a big aha moment when we realize, we're the princess that has to pick up our own sword and slay our own dragons, right? All right, with this understanding on the table, let's jump right into the next part of the question. And it is, are there ways to check in and know if you're putting yourself first? And the answer is, of course, there are. And honestly, it is a very simple practice. It is as simple as asking questions. But first, we have to really put ourselves and our lives in first position. What does that mean? It really means in the position or the perspective of I, right? We don't do this very often unless we're talking about things that we need to do or things that, may be negative. So the I perspective in first position is I need, I want, I am, right? I. This is getting into a place where you don't see your goals, needs, and desires as something separate from yourself, but instead in the mindset of how this impacts you and only you. I. How do I feel? How do I want to be? How am I moving through my life? To help you know if you are actually in first position, when you are doing something for another person, understand that they would not be in the I position, they would be in the second position, and that sounds like you. It is the perspective of you are doing this or you are doing that. You is someone else, right? So I is me, you is someone beyond you. There is another position. It's third position. If you've ever studied English or any kind of literature at all, this is something that we talk about while writing. First, second, and third position. This is active within our lives as well. So third position is the he, she, it, they perspective. So more of a collective group. As to ways to check in and know if you're putting yourself first, we literally tune in and turn inward into that first position. So anytime someone comes to you and says, I need your help in that space where you are giving more of yourself, you would tune in and ask yourself a series of questions. Now, these questions are mere examples, but of course, you can make them work for you. But this does help you move into that lens of first position. So as a request for your time or your emotional space or physical space comes in, you can ask yourself in first position, how do I feel today? Do I have space mentally, emotionally, and physically to help someone else? If your immediate answer is no, then of course, instead of the automatic yes that we often give, you would simply hold space for yourself and simply say no. Often it's here in the thoughts of being a good person that we push aside the first position and go into second position to make the second the priority over your own needs. Next, you can ask, what is important to me today? Do I, in first position, have an agenda that will help support my life in the short term and long term? And if so, if I push that agenda aside, will this impact me negatively or positively? This is a great way to check in and also gauge your time and energy. We often don't have time for new things that are being offered, but because we don't want to upset the second position or even the third position, we change our focus and our original needs and hand over more than we have to actually give. A few other questions that we could really use would be, what do I need to do for myself to make today the best experience that I can have? This is a big one. How many of us actually ask ourselves that question? Another question you can ask is, how can I best care for myself today? And does this actually help me do so? These are extremely simple ways to tune in, put yourself first, and become mindful of what you need and want. Remember that old saying, you can't pour from an empty cup? It's so true. Now, as to holding space without guilt, this is a big one that so many of us struggle with. I want you to realize that saying no isn't really a no. Instead, it's all about really owning your own space, your values, your principles, and most importantly, your need. It's about prioritizing that first position, what's most important to you, as I mentioned just a moment ago. And this is a big thing because once you have clarity around what you want and why you want it, you can create very clear standards around those needs. And that becomes easier to say no from that perspective. And I want you to realize that there's a deeper meaning behind the no, because once you give yourself permission to say no to what doesn't serve you, to these little things that come in and really disrupt what you need, you begin to feel more empowered, and opposed to fearful or worried that you're going to hurt somebody else's feelings, you let that guilt really fall away because you're saying yes to you. For every no, there's a yes, and for every yes, there's a no. So where is the perspective? A lot of people feel like that is selfish, but again, you can't pour from an empty cup. So how can you say no in a guilt-free first position way? The first thing you can do is delay your answer, right? Hold that space, remove the pressure from it, and give yourself some time to think about how the ask will impact you. A simple way would be, I need to think about this. Can I get back to you in a few days? Or if there's high pressure, just say, you know what? I need a few hours to think about this and I'll let you know. Or another way to say it would be, I need to check my schedule. Things are pretty full right now. Immediate answers often put us in the second or third position, and it's generally where we do not want to be. And those positions don't often serve us the best. The second way to do this would be to make a counter offer. I don't actually have full time to commit to the big ask right now, but maybe I can take on a smaller role, or maybe I can answer some questions for you that will help you get started. Or maybe I can connect you with a friend who I know can better serve you. This too removes guilt. The third way is to be firm in your answer. Meaning it's okay to start with the no, right? You don't have to justify your answer or your reasoning. Guilt often comes when we allow space for doubt or fear, really, right? Fear that someone's not going to like you because you've said no. Just be firm. No is a complete sentence. The fourth way is to keep it brief if you feel like you need to explain. Often when we're trying to be a good person or trying to be kind, we go into depth justifying why we said no, and we open the door for wiggle room. Instead, just keep it brief. One of my favorite sayings is, I'm sorry, I just don't have bandwidth for that right now. It's a big thing. It's a very simple sentence, but most people get that. I don't have time for it right at this moment. When we hold space for ourselves without guilt, we do it by being honest. We don't apologize for taking up our own space, and we keep firm in our first position. Holding space is so necessary. Putting yourself first is a huge priority, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Doing so creates self-acceptance, not an adverse relationship with yourself, right? So there is no selfishness when you're putting yourself first. Again, the longest relationship you will have is the relationship with yourself. In all the kindness that you do for others, you absolutely must offer it to yourself. I want to thank you, Margaret from Austin, Texas, for such a great question. I challenge all of you to hold space for yourself, put yourself in first position, say no without guilt, and realize that being a good person means that you hold space for you too. And doing so is really an essential life tool that will help you elevate and reset your mindset. Thank you so much for listening to the Get Your Life Together Girl mini mindset reset. If you have a subject or a strategy request, email us at getyourlifetogethergirl@gmail.com. Or you can visit our website at getyourlifetogethergirl.com. If you're looking for daily inspiration or tips and tools, join the growing community at Get Your Life Together Girl on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Thank you for being a valuable member of this community. Until next time, be kind to yourself and others.